So President Donald Trump's promised immigration crackdown is underway this morning, with ICE agents arresting hundreds of undocumented immigrants in several major cities across the country. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake has the latest.
The first of 1,500 active duty U.S. troops deployed by President Trump, arriving at an Army airfield in El Paso, Texas, to help boost border security. Trump's border czar promising more big changes are coming.
You're going to see border wall being constructed. You're going to see a lot of soldiers down there on the impediment progress and putting concertina wire up border barriers.
Those barriers, multiple sources say, could include the expanded use of floating buoys like these, installed by the Border Patrol along the Rio Grande to deter migrant crossings. And those who do cross will find an asylum system all but shut down by a series of Trump executive orders.
It was really an invasion. We will not allow our territory to be violated.
It comes as ICE conducts raids in some cities, including Boston and in Newark, New Jersey, where the mayor says agents raided a local business, detaining, quote, undocumented residents as well as citizens, adding that one was a veteran who was asked for his military documentation. ICE saying agents sometimes encounter U.S. citizens while conducting field work and may request identification. Trump teasing more to come in a Fox News interview that aired overnight.
Now we have to get people out of our country that would have never been here.
But the president's plan to end birthright citizenship, which he considers a magnet for migrants, was dealt a blow Thursday. Trump's executive order would stop automatic citizenship going to children of undocumented immigrants, but a federal judge in Seattle temporarily blocking it. Judge John Kuhnauer, a Reagan appointee, on the bench for 40 years, writing, quote, I can't remember another case where the question presented is as clear as this one. This is a blatantly unconstitutional order. Trump reacting hours later.
Obviously, we'll appeal it. There's no surprises with that, Judge.
NBC's Garrett Haake reporting. So a lot of activity this morning. We're working on corroborating. But, Rev, I'm just curious what you think of so far, how this is being rolled out. Of course, Donald Trump talked about this in the campaign. Not shocking, but disturbing to some. And quoting the new White House press secretary, as part of a tweet that she put out, if you illegally enter the United States of America, you will face severe consequences. So sending a very extreme message to a lot of people who are really scared.
Very, very, very scared. And I might add that when you look at the fact that there's a serious element of profiling here, that we're looking for people of a certain black or brown color, when we're looking at the fact that this is a president who has told law enforcement be tougher on people and don't even put their heads down when you're throwing them into police vans. He's openly endorsed police brutality, so I would assume that would go with ICE as well. It's a nightmare for the civil liberties and civil rights of people. Coming on the back of him trying to deal with those that are born here being denied citizenship, going back to the Dred Scott decision. So I think that if this was a cocktail, it would be all of the toxic, poisonous things you would not want to drink. And I think that he's doing this, and he hasn't even been president for a week.
Right.
You know, Jonathan Lemire, this is a replay in part to what happened in 2017 when President Trump first got into office. You had deportations, you had this sort of activity. It was a bit more chaotic, actually, at the beginning of last time than this time. But it looks like the wheels are now in motion for this. Two things. One, as we say and everybody else has said on this show, this is in part why Donald Trump got elected. He ran on illegal immigration. He ran on massive deportation, I think is what he said. He also even in Michigan had a speech where he talked about if it had to be bloody deportation, it would be that. And voters voted for him. The question is this, though. Any indication early on how widespread this is, how wide the net is being cast? Because I think that's going to be the real question. We had heard, well, the January 6th cases were going to be taken on a case-by-case basis. That ended up not being true. And then we heard here that they were going to focus mainly on illegal immigrants who had committed crimes after coming to the country illegally. Any early indication there?
Well, we know that, first of all, that Tom Honan and Stephen Miller, who are the architects of the Trump immigration policy, which means deportation policy in this regard, you want to go as big as possible. And we should note the statement that Mika just read from the press secretary just talks about people who are here illegally, does not suggest they also committed any sort of other crime, any sort of violent crime. So, at least for now, that distinction not being made. But we are learning there's been some reports of local media reports of some raids throughout the country in the last day or two in big cities, Newark, New Jersey, among them, Boston, another. A lot of details still unknown as to who exactly was the target of those raids, Molly. But part of this point here is indeed sort of shock and awe. It's about the image. It's about going big, looking big and forceful. And to Joe's point, polls suggest Americans largely do support violent criminals being deported. But if people's only crime is being here illegally, that gets a little harder.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, what I'm struck by is that so much of this is in Project 2025. You'll remember Project 2025, the thing that we started talking about earlier this year, a huge website, a lot of information online. It became wildly unpopular when the American people started Googling it. And then Trump tried to distance himself. But all of these things, sending troops to the border, you know, all of this, the immigration stuff, you know, even the 14th Amendment, the war on the 14th Amendment, trying to end birthright citizenship, that's in there. So I do think it's interesting. And when people did search Project 2025, they didn't like it.
Joe.
Yeah, you know, what's also interesting, too, is, and we're going to see how this plays out, way too early to talk about any trend lines, but we saw in the Garrett Haake package a Reagan-appointed judge throwing out the birthright citizenship claim, saying it was unconstitutional. President Trump saying he's going to appeal that. We also seem to have a repeat, at least early on, of the courts stepping in to the gap. We, of course, saw the 11th Circuit do it on an appeal even before Donald Trump got back into the White House. We saw the Supreme Court vote 5-4 that he did have to, in fact, stand for sentencing. And we're now seeing this on immigration. I suspect there is going to be, you're going to see a good bit of judicial pushback, even from Republican-appointed justices. It will be very interesting.